The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
All right, welcome to the NBA Finals Megapod. We have a lot of guests, including the leadoff hitter. He's in Dallas. He's very excited for this series. He's on the Subway Fresh Take hotline right now. He's from ESPN.com. He's Marc Stein. What's happening?
Beautiful day looking out at the Biscayne Bay. Let's do this.
It's really a glory stretch for Dallas because you had the new football stadium. You had the Rangers make the World Series. You had Dirk basically reclaim his territory as a Pantheon guy. It's starting to look like. And then you had, what was the other thing you had? Oh, you had the All-Star game. You had the Super Bowl. Is this it? Is this where it peaks?
2 epic snowstorms, the Tony Romo wedding. It goes on and on and on.
I forgot about the Romo wedding.
The Romo wedding was a news brief because of the Mavs' heroic return to the finals.
Walk me through the psychology of this whole finals for Dallas sports fans 5 years after the traumatic 2006 loss.
They will not be breathing easy until the final whistle if they can get that far. There's still a nervousness that goes with this team, and that's why you hear a lot of people say, well, there's only 2 guys left from '06. It's not really a rematch. It's a rematch. Believe me. As one person connected with the team told me recently, the '06 debacle is something that hangs over the Mavs and the franchise and the fans every single day. So they didn't think they were going to have a chance this year to actually face those demons and exercise this whole thing. But then I really feel like once they swept the Lakers, they won't admit it, but they started thinking it then.
Is it better that they're playing Miami? Because, if they beat Miami, then you're really exercising the demons. I think you would exercise them anyway against any Eastern team, but is this the best way to do it?
If they won, it would be the best way, but they just need to win one. So
doesn't matter.
Had they beaten Chicago, I think they would have been just as happy. But Dirk said it. We sat down over the weekend and he said it. Look, it's been so hard to get here. These 5 years have been so rough with 3 first-round losses, and he would have played anybody anywhere to have this chance over again, and I do believe him on that.
I watched Game 6 of the '06 Finals was on NBA TV on Saturday, and it was going against something else I was watching. I ended up toggling back and forth. I totally forgot the morning component to that Finals. And, I think in Game 6 he had 5 blocks in 15 minutes. They also had Shaq. They had Haslam. They were just bigger and tougher in that series. And we could talk about the refs and Dwayne Wade, all that stuff. But, I thought Miami controlled the paint in that series, and that's usually why teams win the NBA title. Dallas is tougher this year. They have the Chandler-Haywood combo. I think mentally they're a lot tougher. Don't you feel like – I don't really feel like there's a comparison between this team and that '06 team.
I had the exact same reaction. I actually watched the overtime of Game 5 over again this weekend, and I had the same reaction. Men versus boys.
Yeah.
You looked at the guys who were around Nowitzki then, and Devin Harris, Josh Howard. These guys were young players, and once it started going south, they didn't know how to stop it.
Diop. Who else?
Gary Payton. Gary Payton was huge in that series. And when I look at this Mavs team, that's the difference I see. Just the impact that Kidd has and all these vets around. They're older, they're smarter, they're tougher. The problem is, though, I think they might be playing a better team. When the zone that LeBron is in right now, I mean, the Heat are a handful. I mean, they are scarier than they were going into the '06 Finals. I don't think there's any question about that.
I don't know if I agree. I think, that '06 team with Riley coaching, with you had Posey in there, you had Mourning and Shaq, you had Wade. It was a tough veteran team.
I mean, they had a great supporting cast, but 3 elite scorers is going to worry any team.
Yeah.
And let's look. I mean, if you look at this playoff run, Bosch has been far better than expected.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's LeBron. I mean, LeBron is the difference. LeBron has never been this effective at both ends of the court as consistently as he has in these playoffs.
Right. And
if
so
he
your
can
argument
keep that up, I don't know if you can beat this team.
Now here would be my counter to that. The last 2 rounds, the other team did not have a scorer that looked this Miami team in the eye and said, all right, you just scored. Now watch this. I'm going to score too. And now Dirk is in this series, and he's going to match these guys. At least you would think. And they've had a lot of success. The 2 games they played this year, didn't Dallas dominate both of them?
They didn't dominate the second one, but I mean they won them both. But that's definitely the way the Mavs see it. The Mavs are thinking, with our passing, with our ball movement, we are going to stretch their defense like nobody else has, and they're going to have to. Dirk's going to have to play at a really, really high level, but he's also going to have to get the help he's gotten. And so many times in this run, there's been a Barea or a Terry big game, or even Kidd has just made some huge shots.
Right.
Peja Stojakovic, 6 for 6 from 3 against the Lakers. They're going to need a couple performances like that. They've got to get the Miami defense scattered and stretched out, and it's easy to lock in on one guy like they did against Chicago. The Mavs are a team the Mavs are built on the principle of we're a hard team to guard, but there are times that they bog down and stagnate like we saw in the Portland series. So I mean, they're going to have to execute offensively at a high level.
The other thing with the Mavs is they can score 6 points in 10 seconds. With those threes, you can really make up a lot of ground, even if you're not playing that well and you're down 8, you're down 9. I think Miami was doing this too, although I don't think they're 3-point shooters, even though they shot really well in the first 3 rounds. I don't think they're as reliable. But I just think it's such a better offensive team than the last 2 teams they played. Boston could barely get to 85 points for whatever reason after the Perkins trade. And Chicago, same thing. Like, Chicago, it was a chore for them to get to 85 points. Dallas can get to 85 points.
Yep. No question. I mean, if you would have told me before the playoffs that the Mavs were going to be number 1 in offensive efficiency, I would have been laughing. But I mean, there were times that this offense was really hard to watch during the regular season. But I mean, Dirk's obviously taken it up a notch or 3 notches, but the other guys around him, the ball is just moving beautifully, and they've had both the Lakers and the Thunder on a swivel.
Hey, I haven't been reading the stories leading up to this series because I just like enjoying the games. I don't want to read all the pregame hype. Is it fair to say that Barea is like a real wild card in this series? Because I feel like Miami doesn't have anybody to handle him.
No question, because that pick and roll in fourth quarters, it used to just be Terry and Dirk, and that was really the way the Mavs always finished games, and it was super effective. They're right there with LeBron and Wade as far as fourth quarter scorers in this league, but teams knew exactly what was coming.
Yeah.
Now that Barea-Nowitzki pick and roll with shooters spread out in the corners, it's become really hard for teams to guard, and I mean, you heard Kobe say it in the second round. Barea crushed them. He was a huge, huge problem, and he's about the toughest Mav there is. The guy is really, really tough. And
what does Miami do? Like, who guard? You don't think they'd put LeBron on him, right?
I mean, that's the problem. Is really when you look at their personnel, Chalmers is probably the guy, but I mean, they're not going to. I can't see them changing up their whole rotation to make sure there's a steady diet of Chalmers. That's
a huge win for Dallas if it plays out that way.
But the flip side is, he's going to have to guard somebody on the other end.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, nobody has been able to make Dallas pay on that end with Barea. Portland went out of their way to try to post Andre Miller up on him, and it kind of screwed up their offense. And then in round 2, the Lakers didn't have the personnel to do it. And then the last round, I don't know. Well, I mean, add this to the list of I don't know what the hell Oklahoma City was doing in that series, but it's really hard for me to believe they couldn't figure out a way to exploit Barea with Westbrook. Like, it seems like you and I could be in a room for 10 minutes and we could figure out 3 ways to kill him, and they couldn't do it.
No, the other thing, don't forget, that Mavs zone is pretty effective when they need to go to it. They're very comfortable when they have to zone.
So can you do that against Miami?
I think you can. Well,
I kind of feel like you can too.
To me, so much of this series is LeBron. I mean, he's making shots from the outside that we've just never seen him shoot like this. If he keeps doing that, that's going to be a major, major problem. And that's why, to me, Kidd is just monstrous in this series for Dallas.
I said that after the Boston series, and the Miami fans, who of course take everything personally, they were like, "Oh, it's sour grapes. You can't, because basically Boston made LeBron and Wade take a bunch of terrible shots and they all went in." And the Miami fans were like, "Oh, that's sour grapes. You're not giving those guys credit." And it's like, look, LeBron is the most talented player in the league. If he's going to make 23-foot off-balance shots, you're just going to lose. And I don't know how long he can continue this. Maybe this is just the way his career is going to go from now on. But these are mostly not good shots that he's taking. They're just going in. Yeah, I mean, he's in a zone. And really, one of the big surprises in this run for the Mavs is just the way Kidd has been able to. They've thrown him on Kobe, they've thrown him on Durant, and he has done really, really well. And I don't understand. At some point, he's going to guard LeBron, not because it's a great matchup on paper, but just between his smarts, how well all these Team USA guys, he knows them inside and out. Yep. And I think he has got to he's got to be a part of the Mavs getting LeBron off stride if they want to win this series. The other thing about Dallas is they have, I would say, two of the best 3 floppers in the league. Kidd, Barea, and Ginobili, I think, are the top 3 in some order. And the Mavs have 2 of them, and they really could get, they have a tendency to get these cheap fouls on the other team. All of a sudden, Wade's got two fouls with 8 minutes to go in the first quarter and things like that. I hate to bring up the officiating with the Mavericks involved. Kidd is the first Mav I can remember in the Marc Cuban era who actually gets that benefit from the refs. Totally. He gets the respect of a guy who's been in the league 17 years. And how many times did we see Kobe or Durant fling their hands up waiting for the call? Kidd's got the ball in his hands and they're going the other way. And I would also say I think Dirk is at a different level of respect with the refs too. He now gets the call. If something looks weird about the delivery of his shot and he sells it right, he's going to get the call every time. I don't think that was the case in 2006. No, he might disagree with you after that Game 3 when he went to the line 3 times. That's right. I forgot about that game. How you feeling about Dirk, emotionally, as a person, as a human being, as somebody who's primed to win a title? He's really relaxed. Look, he's desperate for a title. He's dying for one. But he just, if you really want to look for differences in him from 5 years ago, he's never going to talk a lot of trash. He's never going to sit up at the podium and say how great he is and talk about taking his talents somewhere. But he does have a swagger. He does, I think, in his own head, feel like he can get wherever he wants to on the floor. He can shoot over anybody they throw at him. Yeah. It's just that you just know. I do think it's a little bit like the way the game slowed down for Nash, and he just knows every little crevice to find and where exactly to go, and that's just how Dirk is at this point. Like he passes up threes to kind of work to the mid-range spot where he knows nobody's going to touch it, and he's going to get his shot off. And that's the thing. If you go back and look at 2006, Haslam played fantastic D on him. There's no question. Yeah. And the refs let that series be physical, but Dirk rushed. He was rushing in a lot of cases, and he doesn't rush anymore. And he also, Bucher and I talked about this last week, he's now able to hold his position on that spot in the foul line. He's just stronger. I don't know what he did to get stronger, but he just can. He gets to his spot, and he stays there, and he gets the ball, and then he does his thing. And Haslam was just shoving him off that spot in 2006. Those games are pretty interesting to rewatch because Dirk really is different in those games. He's just not nearly as physical as he is now. And see, the crazy thing was about that series, because
because when they beat San Antonio, I thought that was when he crossed the threshold, and I think you probably did too.
Yep.
He dominated Game 7 on San Antonio's court. The Spurs, the Spurs, it's only happened twice, but you don't beat San Antonio in a Game 7 on their court. And he was the best player on the floor that day, and I thought that was it. He's gone, he's gone to the next level. So for him to slide a little in the Miami series, and then obviously in the Golden State series the next year, that was the surprise to me. But yeah, he's just a technician now. The word keeps getting thrown around, surgeon. He's a surgeon out there.
What about Bosch defending him? How do you feel about that?
I don't think Bosch can guard him. I think Bosch we all think Bosch should be a good defender, but he doesn't focus on it. He's just not devoted to it. I don't think he can stay with Dirk, but by the same token, that's not going to be a great matchup for Dirk on the other end if he's going to have to guard him. Now, I'm sure they're going to, try to start with Chandler on Bosch and, keep Dirk on Anthony. And I think Anthony's going to guard Dirk a lot as well. So,
where would you rank on the irony scale? Eric Dampier getting a ring at the Mavs' expense, or LeBron James, who Cube secretly did try to go after last summer, being the guy who beats him in the finals the year after he tried to get him?
Yeah, look, Dampier probably not going to play a heck. Well, no, he'll play in this series some because the Mavs are big.
He still gets a ring, though. That hurts.
I don't think they're thinking about Eric Dampier. I think they're definitely thinking about LeBron. Because you remember, Cuban was the one who came out and said, it'll never work. You can't blow up a team and bring in a whole new team. You've got to add to it. And so it's just the models here are just so different with 3 stars teaming up and then the Mavs. I really think the highest compliment you can pay to Dirk for what he's doing right now is this is still a 1-star team. We haven't seen it. It's a 1-star team with a bunch of specialists, really good specialists, veteran specialists, but it's Dirk and a bunch of specialists. And I don't think we've seen a team like that since the Olajuwon Rockets in '94. And history says teams like that don't win. So just getting them to this point, I think, is a pretty significant achievement.
I mean, you'd have to go back to the 03 Spurs would be the last team with one really good player that won the title. And then before that, you have to
But don't you think Ginobili Ginobili was a killer, though?
He was so young, though. It wasn't, he wasn't Ginobili yet. Parker wasn't even close to being Parker yet. Think
Parker had a horrible series, but
it was a one-man team, basically, with a bunch of role players like this team. But maybe we're vastly underrating J.J. Barea, and maybe he's that second star, and we just won't admit it.
You like J.J. Barea? It sounds like is he on the podcast radar?
I like J.J. Barea.
You're gonna have to
feel
get
bad.
him on.
I made fun of him earlier in the year with Henry Abbott on the podcast because it just was hard for me to accept that a 5'7" guy could be this dominant offensively. But it's like at some point we just have to admit that this is one of the best scoring bench guards in recent league history. Like he's out of like the Vinnie Johnson microwave playbook. It's a guy that can come in and single-handedly swing the game for 8 minutes and drop 15 points, before you even know what's going on. And I mean, you've been watching this all year. He wasn't playing at this level the whole season.
No, what he's really worked on his outside shot. That's what makes him such a tough guard now. Is that when he first showed up, or even as recently as last year, he was just not consistent from outside. But now he can, if you just go under, he'll make it.
Yeah. And
he couldn't do that before. But I mean, I'm telling you, this guy he's super tough. And the other thing is, as Nash did as his career went on, Nash just got better every year at the crafty finishes around the basket. And Barea's got to be even craftier because he's so small and he's so good at finishing at the rim. And he pulls out these layups that, he very rarely misses at the bucket.
And the other interesting thing with him is when he doesn't have it, it seems like Carlisle can tell. And when he does have it, he rides him. Which is really, to me, the best kind of bench guy. Somebody that it's almost like, Eddie House was like this a little bit for the Celtics. I think Barea is much better. But somebody that, if they have it, it really can swing the game for you. And if it doesn't have it, it's not going to hurt you because you're not totally relying on him anyway, Like, I'm looking at this last round. Like, game 1, 8 for 12. Game 2, 4 for 8. Then he had the 3 for 10 game 4, not good. But then the 5 for 11 game 5. So, like, 2 out of every 4 times he's going to be, good. I think he could swing at least one of these games in this series. Let me ask you about Cuban. Total low profile. I'm proud of him. I mean, this seems like it was a concentrated effort to let the players and the coach be in the forefront, and he's just being an owner. Were you surprised that he would ever do this?
Yeah, but I really don't think it's a concentrated effort, because that would be Cuban admitting, oh, those media guys were right who told me to keep my mouth shut and stay in the background. And he's never going to think that we know anything. I really feel like it's a superstition thing more than anything.
Oh, really?
The first in L.A., in the L.A. series, he came out like he normally does and did his usual routine where he plops down on the bench before pregame and the media swarms him. But those first 2 games, it was 78 L.A. reporters just begging him to buy the Dodgers. And he tired of that really quickly, made himself a little bit scarce, but then they won those 2 games. They win 2 games on the road. And at that point, things started rolling. Things were going so well. He's like, all right, I'm not talking. I'm staying away from these guys. And then they just kept winning and winning and winning. And I really feel like it's one of those sports superstition things that he just doesn't want to tempt fate.
He wouldn't come on the podcast. He turned me down.
They're 10-1 since the Portland collapse in Game 4. So
amazing.
Because if you I don't know if this one crossed your radar, but there was one of those games in the Oklahoma City series where Bernie Fryer, who's now a ref supervisor, is sitting right behind us on press row. Cuban walked past press row with about 7 reporters working at halftime and got into it with Bernie Fryer. So,
oh no,
he did that right in front of us. So now he came back later and said, "Oh, see, the old Marc, I would have been fine by halftime." And it wasn't like a screaming match or anything, but
I think he's doing the right thing with this, and I actually think this is how he should own the team going forward. I think you want your players and your coach to be the ones, and there's ways for him to come in and out, but I think it's helped. I think it's helped them. I really do. I think he was a distraction in 2006. I think he got so swept up in the officiating, and rightly so, because it was terrible. But, he became part of the story, and I don't know if that helped the team that year.
No, there's no question that the focus on officiating, it creates a focus through the whole team, and everybody gets wrapped up into it. So you've even heard Dirk say, it's not hurting us doing it this way. So I think the players do like it, but I don't know that Cuban doing a lot of interviews has really taken the spotlight away from his guys, because Dirk doesn't want the spotlight anyway. Yeah. Kid certainly doesn't, and beyond that, I mean, they don't really have megawatt stars who are going to be attracting a lot of attention anyway. So,
all right, we have to move on. So give us your pick. Give us your pick as somebody who loves the Mavs. Well, you don't love the Mavs, but you've become attached to a couple of the Mavs. But give us your biased pick, and then give us what you actually think will happen.
No, I mean, there's only one pick. You make a prediction and you stick with it. I am going with Mavs in 6. I think this is their time. I think because of all those things you said about they're so much harder to guard than any team Miami has seen so far. Great road team. I think they're going to steal one of these 2 games. I think it actually helps them this time to start on the road, get here, get the whole 06 Demons thing out of the way. Yeah. But also they've just really they're a really good road team. I mean, Miami hasn't lost at home in the playoffs. The Mavs have won their last 5 road games. It's just that part of it, these first 2 games, I think is going to be pretty fascinating.
All right, Mavs in 6. Marc Stein, see you in Dallas.
All right, pal.
All right, let's bring in Rick Bucher. We had him on last week. He's public enemy number 1 in Miami. How's that feel for you?
So far, it's okay. I haven't seen a whole lot of people on the street. It is very, very hot down here, and I have been sweating, but I don't think that's because of the fan enmity. I think that's just because it's nearly June in Miami.
Tell us about your controversial appearance on the Dan Le Batard show that sent Miami into a frenzy.
That's gained some traction, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are incensed that I'm not anointing LeBron James as the best player in the game, and I believe they're letting me off the hook that I'm not saying he's better than Jordan. But as a result of the Bulls Heat series, the feeling is that, well, that's it. Rose was not the MVP. We know who the best player in the game is. And I'm just reluctant to take that step because I believe by and large we're looking at how this series went. And I don't know that that's a fair comparison considering all of the ancillary factors. All the obviously the Chicago Bulls were not the same Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
Obviously we're looking at it strictly from a statistical place. And here's my thing. Quite honestly, if Derrick Rose has been one of those guys, and it's one of the reasons why I've always looked at him a little different. He could care less about statistics. And I know the critics out there will say, well, yes, and we can tell.
Right.
But he doesn't play from that place. He plays from, how am I going to win this game? If I need to carry it upon my shoulders, I will continue to attack because we have no other options. And if LeBron James is guarding Derrick Rose on almost any other team, that would mean that there is a fantastic other option to go to in which you can now play Derrick Rose off the ball, and let's see if LeBron James can stay with him as he's coming off screens and as he's running around not being the primary guy. The Chicago Bulls proved that they did not have that guy.
Yeah.
And so, to me, they were a severely limited team. What it showed is that the Miami Heat were clearly the superior team, not necessarily LeBron James is clearly the superior player.
At the same time, you could not have asked for more from LeBron James in that series.
No. Hey, look, if anybody wants to say, was he the best player in this series? Hey, no question. I mean, look, did everything that they asked, did the dirty work, scored, this is where it gets troublesome for me because I don't want this to come off as some sort of critique of LeBron James that he was less than or didn't do enough. No, he won the series. He was great. I just don't ask me to weigh the two based on this series and say, well, it's clear. I mean, you've got to be crazy if you're not going with this guy. Well, no, I'd like to look at it through a slightly larger prism and take into context everything, not just the one-on-one matchup.
I have definitely nitpicked with LeBron over the years just because my expectations are so high for him because I think he's one of the three most talented players who's ever played. In 2009, you and I differed a little bit. I thought he was amazing in 2009. Statistically, he was amazing, but I just thought that his team wasn't very good, and he did everything he could, and it just wasn't enough. You were a little down on him in that series, though.
Which series?
Just the Orlando series. You didn't feel like I almost feel like you're like the dad who's you want the son to be the overachiever, but he's so talented. You're like, no, you can do better. You can still do better. You sure you're not the dad in this scenario?
Yeah, here's the thing: the willingness to take the shots that he's taking now are more so than, I mean, this is the crux of it. He has better go-to guys around him now.
Yeah.
I think most people would say he has more talent around him now. Fair?
Yeah.
And yet, with that team, he was looking for somebody else to take those big shots, to be aggressive at the end of games. This is where, not to come back to the whole Rose and LeBron thing, but there are times where LeBron would swing the ball to another guy who either A, wouldn't necessarily have a great look, or when that guy got stuck, LeBron wasn't running over to get the ball back from him and saying, okay, I'll fix this. I'll try to salvage it. It was, hey, I made the basketball play. I swung it. I did what I was supposed to do. And look, am I grading him on a curve? What I'm seeing now, have I kind of seen that he was capable of that all along? Yes. And so Am I that dad? You know what? I might be. I have long said what grieves me are the people that support LeBron and say he's all this and he's all that. And I'm saying you're doing him a disservice because he could be so much more than what he's shown us to this point. And I believe, quite honestly, what he's done for the Miami Heat in this playoffs is supporting that argument, whether it's from 2009 or any previous year.
Yeah. Well, could this finals just come down to LeBron versus Dirk? Like, could you just say whoever has the better series is going to win the championship?
No, I believe there are too many moving parts here. Yeah. Is Dallas? How's Dallas going to shoot the three? Is Jason Kidd going to continue to shoot the three? Is J.J. Barea going to be scoring layups on the inside? I really believe that with both of these teams, because we've seen it, and this is why I say these playoffs have been most like the NCAA tournament than I can ever remember the NBA playoffs being, is I get the feeling like emotional, whether it's emotions, psyche, confidence, are playing such huge factors with these teams. And if J.J. Barea is scoring at will, sort of what he did to the Lakers, it's not just the J.J. Barea. I mean, you look at the numbers. J.J. Barea didn't score a whole lot. It was the impunity of J.J. Barea driving down the lane and scoring that completely unraveled the Lakers.
Yeah.
Will that have that effect on the Heat? Or with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, picking up steals and throwing down dunks in transition, is that going to unnerve the Dallas Mavericks? I feel like that's going to have as much of a factor here as how the stars align.
It could be, that would be my fear with Dallas if you're picking Dallas in this series. That,
yes,
they're a little reminiscent of the Boston team, a little bit older, athletically just kind of not on the same level on the wing spots. And there were moments in that Miami series where Miami just looked like the up-and-coming boxer, and the Celtics looked like the old guy trying to use their craft, and it just wasn't enough. And, I do wonder if there's a couple of those moments where you're like, oh, my God, look at this Miami team, how Dallas is going to respond to that. The flip side of that, of course, is they play together so much better than I think than Boston played in round two as a team. Boston didn't play well together, and they still had these new pieces, and just wasn't a team that felt cohesive. Same thing with the Bulls last round. This Dallas team is cohesive, and that'll be, I guess this comes down to the age-old question, is cohesiveness better than just raw athletic talent? I guess we're going to find out.
The other part is that the Mavericks have shown a resilience. They've been down big numbers to athletic teams. Now, I believe that Miami would put them in a vice if they get down big to Miami. I don't see them digging out of holes against Miami, but they have shown a certain amount of resilience. The other part here for me that's interesting is you look at the Mavericks, and when we've talked about all of the frustration and disappointment that their various guys have had, but they've all been on this NBA final stage before.
Oh, yeah.
LeBron has been here. Dwayne Wade has been here. But after that, and Udonis Haslem has been here, but after that, it gets thin in a hurry. Chris Bosh, as well as he's played under, he's never seen this before. And guys can, conference finals are big. Each step is, the NBA finals are an entirely new level of attention, scrutiny, pressure. And I have a little more confidence that whatever the Dallas Mavericks are, I believe that Miami could dominate this series. That said, whatever Dallas is, that's what they're going to be. I don't see their guys being intimidated by the moment. What we've seen from Miami to this point, there's a possibility we will not see the same Miami Heat in the finals just because they've got so many guys that have never been on this stage before.
All right, gun to your head, who are you picking?
I don't need a gun to my head. I've been saying it. I've got the Heat in 5 games. The way they've played defensively and the confidence that they have and the questions about the matchups, it's just the Dallas. I mean, it's really good versus evil, and the Dallas Mavericks are a much more heartwarming story, and they have been resilient. And I did not expect them to be here, but when I look at I've got so many questions. How's Dallas going to answer this? How are they going to answer this? And yes, they've shot the ball shot the three ball well, but I'm always leery about counting on 3-point shooting as the thing that is going to be the difference maker for your team.
I would have been with you on the good versus evil argument, but I do think Miami gets a ton of credit for how well they came together in these playoffs. And, I think guys have sacrificed.
But do you think they've gotten that credit? Do you think? I mean, I almost feel like it's a little begrudging what they get, and that you know what, they have come together and they've sacrificed and they've been different guys, but there's still a feeling like it's too soon. They haven't earned it. It's too soon, and we don't. It's just a built-in animosity from the very beginning of how they came together. And I just don't know that they could ever do enough in the larger realm to get people to appreciate what they're doing. Because I agree with you, but I don't. I get a sense there's a reluctance out there to appreciate exactly what they've done.
As you know, I've been vehemently anti-Miami because I didn't like how they put the team together. But I thought what LeBron did in the Bulls series. I don't know. It's just like you can't ask for more than a guy than that. You guard the other team's best player.
No.
And then you do everything possible on the other end. You come through in every big moment. Like, what else do I want from a basketball player? Chris
Bosh quietly dominated the Carlos Boozer matchup.
I think you could have dominated that matchup, though.
Yeah, well, that said, but look, we need to give credit where credit is due.
True.
Dwayne Wade.
He wasn't very good.
Through what was apparently an injury or whatever, but he still had his moments. He still contributed. Udonis Haslem, huge effort. Mike Miller, huge effort.
Can I make a Dwayne Wade? Let me make a Dwayne Wade point really quickly.
Yes.
I don't want to hear about Dwayne Wade being injured or a little banged up. Hey, Miami fans, God bless you, but you can't use that as an excuse. This is what happens when you have a three-man team that has to play 100-plus games at the highest possible level with a bullseye on their back, and you have two offensive players who have to do everything for the team every game. To expect both of those guys to be healthy in mid-June is not that realistic. I think LeBron is superhuman. Obviously, this guy can never get hurt. He might be a machine. But Dwayne Wade is somebody that has battled various injuries throughout his career. It wasn't realistic for him to play 38, 39 minutes a game after game after game, and play as hard as he has to play on both ends. The guy was going to wear down, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, that's where he is physically, and just that's the big question I have with them moving forward. Where is Dwayne Wade going to be physically moving forward? I know what his calendar age is, but he gets hurt a lot. I also, when you attack and you fall and you throw yourself around as he does, that's part of the deal too.
Yeah.
That if you're going to play that style, then you risk being injured. And I don't get the sense that anybody from Miami is using that as an alibi, but I would agree with you. I don't know that we can. I don't know that anybody would give it to him if they asked for it. Yeah,
you have a team that hinges basically on three guys, and all three of them have been remarkably healthy considering what kind of a load they had to carry, and especially LeBron, who is playing 44 minutes a game in these playoffs. Now, they lucked out because they only had to go 5 games per round. They didn't have to go 7 in any of those rounds or anything. But, when you're playing 44 minutes a game in a playoff series and you're not tired in the last 3 minutes of the game, I don't think there's been 4 guys ever who could do that. Even Jordan, playing at the level he played, he would wear down and be sweaty and look tired at the end. LeBron's not even looking tired at the end of these games. So
the one element that I would add there though is the way the game is defended, in part because the way the game's being executed offensively, it's not the same sort of side to side defense. Everything's more direct line.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And again, to me, this is also part of, like, the way Miami had to defend Chicago, they didn't have to rotate. They didn't have full rotations. And to me, that's where the fatigue becomes incredible, is when you're constantly having to zig, you're constantly having to defend on one side of the floor and then V back to the other and then V up again. But I don't want to. We're sort of. I'm picking at things now because the reality is, it's taken a tremendous amount of energy and LeBron has supplied it. It's funny because Spoelstra has said at times, he's told LeBron, like, you cannot get tired. We cannot have you tired now.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I haven't seen signs of fatigue in him the way I did in Cleveland. No,
not at all. And not mental fatigue either. You just pointed out one reason why I think Dallas is going to win, and then I'll let you go. Wow. I think they're going to make Dallas work a lot harder defensively than they had to.
You mean Miami?
I'm sorry, Miami.
Dallas is going to make Miami work a lot harder.
Yeah, I just think they're going to be moving guys on screens, moving guys around, moving the ball. I don't think that Miami is going to be able to play the same kind of defense. Especially the kind of defense they played. Chicago couldn't have been easier for them to stop. That was like the most predictable offense out of any of the 16 playoff teams.
Yep.
Dallas is just going to be tougher.
Yeah. I'm making this point on ESPN Radio today, which is this series. I know people are still remember 2006 and the role that the referees played.
Yeah.
The referees are going to play a huge role in this series.
I agree.
There's just no way around it. And that's sort of where we are with the way the game is played now, is that teams make it hard on the referees. This drive and kick game with these superb athletes is they're purposely putting the referees in a difficult position, and the tendency is with the league being sensitive to not wanting anything to go astray.
Yeah.
They're conscious about blowing the whistle rather than not blowing the whistle.
I think Miami puts more pressure on the refs than I think any finals team I've ever seen. Maybe
hard to argue with that.
You might say Shaq from 000102 because he was just getting fouled on every play, and it just became the refs had to just decide what they were going to call. But Miami's shooting 30+ free throws every game. And they could really possibly, you could really get to 40 if they were calling everything. Guys bounce off LeBron. You never know if it's a foul or not. It'll be interesting. Rick Bucher, try to stay alive on the streets of Miami.
I will do what I can. I've got Will Perdue and Hubie Brown as my wingmen.
Two good bodyguards. All right, we'll talk to you. All right, we're bringing in the professor, John Hollinger. Have you trademarked the professor?
No, I really ought to. Stein just started calling me that, and it's kind of stuck.
I like it.
So, yeah, I totally do. If Russell Johnson doesn't already have that trademark, I need to do something.
I like it. The Czar, Mike Fratello, I think that those monikers can go a long way. The professor, you could play it up, maybe have a little monocle in your ESPN.com photo.
The monocle would definitely be key, yes.
A monocle.
Yes. Well, you should know. I mean, the sports guy.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
It's working for you.
Readers sometimes can't remember real names, and they just remember monikers. Tell me how you're leaning in this series, because Miami has been a team that statistically has translated pretty well.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward the Heat. I don't think it's going to be I don't think they're going to cream them or anything, but I definitely lean toward Miami. I mean, one thing, home court advantage. Home court teams 20-6 since they went 2-3-2, and then you look at the Heat. Had superior point differential during the season. Played a little better during the postseason, although Dallas played very well too. And then the matchups, I think, kind of favor Miami too. I think it's going to be really tough to keep Jason Terry on the court in this series.
Right. Why do you think that? Because of the matchup with Wade?
Yeah, either he or Jason Kidd has to guard Wade, or they have to go zone. So it's going to be a constant battle for Rick Carlisle to try to get the right defensive matchups, in addition to worrying about, somebody's got to check LeBron too, obviously.
Right.
But having those two great perimeter players like that, it makes it so much harder than even in the last two series where they were able to switch Kidd on Durant for stretches or put Kidd on Kobe Bryant. But I think Wade's a very different kind of player because he beats you pretty much with quickness, and that's not an area where Kidd can compete.
You know, LeBron has been logging major minutes in this series. Have you studied it all? Like he's playing 44 minutes a game, and I think I don't see that dropping even by a minute in the finals. Have you studied it all? Like for non-centers, logging that kind of minutes, like is he like kind of making history here in a way or no?
You know, I don't have much on that to help you with, honestly.
Do you factor that into your?
We've seen other players rack up big minute totals in the postseason. I think LeBron is unique because he's been racking up big totals season after season in the regular season too. And I've always kind of presumed that he's somewhat indestructible and that it won't matter. But at some point, it's going to catch up to him. You got to think.
Yeah, like Iverson. Well, this was 2005. It probably wasn't that many games, but he played 47 minutes a game. Gilbert Arenas did 47 in 2006. Marion, well, that was, I'm looking through it. I guess Iverson in 2002 was like 46. And I think in 2001 he was playing 45 minutes a game. But it's just hard for me to believe that he could play at this level and also not rest. When you're doing these, you know, the PR, all these different stats you're looking at, is there a way to kind of weigh, like, this guy's playing 6 more minutes than everybody else in every game? Like, shouldn't we factor that in?
That's why I came up with estimated wins added, which is basically PER factoring in how many minutes a guy is playing and
beautiful.
allowing for durability. Because I do think that makes LeBron fairly unique, that he can play 45 minutes a game and still, you know, if it goes to double overtime, like, he doesn't look any worse for the wear.
Right. And it's 6 extra minutes that they don't have somebody crappy in the game. You know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, with Miami, it's huge. The difference between the regular season and the postseason for them, if you play 5 extra minutes of Wade, 5 extra minutes of Bosh, 5 extra minutes of LeBron, now you're looking at 15 minutes where you're not playing someone like James Jones out there. I mean, it's a pretty large difference. And that difference applies to every team in the postseason, but for Miami, it's more dramatic than for anyone else.
Tell me about some of the shooting numbers and stuff with Dirk. Is this on par with? I mean, he's basically been this good for 3 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. You know, people got down on him because he had 2 bad playoff series right in a row: 2006 finals and 2007 first round. But if you look at the rest of his playoff career, like, this is pretty much what he's been doing. And he obviously had that one crazy game in Game 1 of the conference finals, but. Even if you take that out, I mean, the rest of his playoff career, like, this is pretty much what he's done. And he's just, because they haven't won a title and you know, they haven't always had quite the right mix around him. He's the one that's taken the arrows, but really other than those 2 series, he's outperformed his regular season numbers in the playoffs.
What do you think is the plot that isn't being mentioned enough in these finals?
The stat?
No, the plot. What subplot do you feel, you know, everybody's been hitting the same angles. Is there an angle you feel like isn't getting enough attention?
The starting lineup for Dallas has a negative plus-minus in the postseason.
Really?
Yeah. And it didn't matter as much last series because Oklahoma City was also entering that series negative, so it didn't really swing that much. But when you're going against Miami now, who with this current starting lineup has been strongly positive, now you're looking at the possibility of giving up points first 6 minutes of the first and third quarter every game, and I worry about that from Dallas's perspective, that they're just going to constantly be playing from behind. And their bench is good enough to get them back in a lot of these games, but obviously that's not how you want to play. So I think these starts to each half are an area where people aren't really looking at, but Miami could have a real advantage.
What should Dallas do to, like, if you were running the Mavs and you told Rick Carlisle, do this instead, what would you do instead?
Boy, I'm not. That's the tricky part, because unless you're going to pull Stevenson, unless you're just going to say we're going to start Terry and we're going to try to beat you 127-118, I'm not sure what options he has. So yeah, it's tricky. I mean, that's where Rick Carlisle, as clever as he's been with kind of hiding this team's weaknesses all season, is going to have to be twice as smart in this finals, because every time he goes to one of those bench guys, it's opening a defensive hole that he has to hide somehow.
You know, that's pretty interesting, though. Why wouldn't he bench Deshaun Stevenson for this series? I mean, you're basically you have to win 4 times. Like, you could tighten the rotation a little bit and just go 3 guard. You know, the whole thing, just get him out. I never totally understood the Stevenson thing. It was kind of he was the West Coast version of the Keith Bogans thing, which I also didn't understand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, he totally is, yeah.
But why not? And why not just dump him?
You could make that argument. There's a worry that Terry will pick up fouls, I guess, but right. or that you have to go, you'd have to go Barea Terry for longer stretches, which is a little scary defensively. Yeah. But offensively, you gain so much that, yeah, I think you can make a real case for that. You could also, you might be able to go some stretches where Peja and Marion are your wings too. If one of LeBron or Wade is out of the game, and steal some minutes that way too. So, yeah, it's an interesting argument. I think it's the one card in his deck that he could play at some point in this series. And
he is a very stat-friendly coach, correct?
Oh yeah. He's a smart guy. I mean, he heats this stuff up, and they have actually Roland Beach, the guy from 82games.com, is now he's on Dallas' staff, and he actually works with the coaching staff as much as the front office. He travels with the team and everything, and wow. I think it's because Rick is receptive to that kind of input.
And it seems, I think Dallas is the team. They like the 5-man plus minus. That's one of their stats, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Cuban was the guy who hired Wayne Winston originally, who was doing a lot of work with plus minus with individual players. So, yeah, going way back, the Mavs have been really into plus minus.
I'm not a fan. Where do you stand on plus minus for individuals? I'm not a huge fan.
It can be really deceiving.
Yeah.
There are a lot of variables that go into that in terms of who you play with.
Yeah.
And also you need a very large sample of data in order to really draw strong conclusions.
Yeah.
If we played 200-game seasons and lineups were mixed randomly, I'd feel a lot better about all the plus-minus stats.
Right.
But because that's not how it is, I think they have to be used very carefully. I think there are some inferences you can draw. I think when you look at 5-man units, there are some good conclusions you can reach. But when you look at individuals and plus-minus, there are some variables in there that are out of the player's control completely that drive a lot of that.
I don't like it, but I really like the 5-man. And I think you can learn stuff from that. And after a while, the more games you play, there's just stuff that stops becoming an accident after a while. The other one that I think usage rate has been like kind of the star of this 2010-11 season. That was one I'm not even sure I'd ever heard of that one before this fall. I think that's been really fascinating to look at. Are you happy with the Miami usage rate? Does that look the kind of the way it should look for that team?
Yeah, You figured it would go down a little. I was a little surprised how much it went down in Bosch's case. I thought he'd be able to play off those guys more and get more passes, I guess, for baskets. But
yeah,
it's been roughly what I expected.
I'm looking at their playoffs. LeBron is 28.6. Wade is 30.7. And Bosch is 22.1. Pretty interesting. Bosch's actually gone up during the playoffs. That seems like about what it should be. I was surprised that Wade was higher than LeBron. I would have thought LeBron was higher.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that may just be randomness. I think that's just we're only looking at 15 games or whatever. I bet you if they played 80 even in this environment, no one's going to play 80 playoff games, obviously. But I think over time you would see LeBron move ahead, and you may in this series.
So the professor's recommendation is Miami in 5 or 6, it sounds like.
I would say 6. I think it'd be very difficult to win in 5 because then you're talking about, with the first 3 of the first 5 being in Dallas.
Yeah.
It really tilts the odds in favor of the series coming back to Miami and being at least a 6-game series. But, yeah, I would say Miami in 6 is the safest call.
Well, that would be depressing. Because if Miami wins this year, it's all over because their team's only going to get better.
Well, here's the thing, though. Depending on what that new CBA does, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Explain.
And the other thing with Miami, the door is always going to be open because if any of these guys gets hurt, then it's over for them because they have no depth at all.
Well, Bucher now.
So I still have trouble seeing it as like a deal where they're winning large numbers of consecutive titles. Like too much has to go right every single year, I think, for that to happen. But yeah, this is definitely the type of team that can win multiple championships, no question. But if you talk about like an Uber dynasty, they're going to need to be very fortunate health-wise and with this new CBA.
Bucher and I were talking about they've been pretty lucky this year when you think just how many miles LeBron, Wade, and Bosh had to log and pressure miles with the bullseye in their back. Every time they played, it was a playoff game for the other team, and how much they have to do offensively. Wade was the only one who seems like he's worn down. And, I think that when you think LeBron hasn't worn down at all, it's kind of insane. But, yeah, I think if the new CBA, from what we can tell is going to happen, it doesn't seem like that hard cap's going to go on for a couple years. So they should be able to get at least 1 or 2 more guys, I'm thinking, right?
You would think so. It's going to be hard. We don't know what exceptions are going to be available. They may be able to do some tricky stuff like buying draft picks and getting a young guy or 2 that way. Yeah. But I think no matter what, they're just going to have to be really shrewd from here on out because their hands are going to be tied cap-wise, and this is not a team that's ever paid a cent of luxury tax, if I remember correctly, either.
Yeah.
So depending on what the new rules are on that, that's going to be another potential handcuff.
All right. Well, the professor, you bummed me out a little bit. It really sounds like you're convinced that Miami's going to win, and that scares me. Because I want at least a 7-game series, but I'm hoping that Dallas can avenge 06. Anyway, John Hollinger.
I would love a 7-game series, but if the Mavs don't shoot at least 40% on threes, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, you're probably right. John Hollinger, we will read you on ESPN.com every day during these finals. Good luck with everything.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. We're bringing in our Vegas expert, the one, the only, Chad Millman, now the editor of ESPN the magazine. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Official date June 15th, but it's there. We're doing it. It's
whatever.
Over.
As far as I'm concerned, you're the editor now.
You know what? I kind of feel the same way. I got a lot of people asking me questions, so that's what I think makes it official.
Tell me about the interest in our favorite city, Las Vegas, for this 2011 NBA Finals.
Wouldn't that be nice?
What's nice?
That would be cool, right?
What?
For 2011, if the NBA Finals were actually in Las Vegas.
Oh, that would be fun. We might be headed there at some point in life.
I feel like we are. Every year, David Stern seems to sort of hint a little bit more. And if anybody has been sort of the most vocal and progressive about the ideas of professional sports existing in Las Vegas, has been him.
I think the way to do it is this. You go 2 in one, you go 2 in the other, and then you have the last 3 in Vegas.
Which is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Can you imagine the problem is, what if it ends up being like 3-0 by the time you got to go to Vegas?
Well, then you go 1, and then you go the last 5 in Vegas.
I think that's a better idea. That way you get at least 2 games there.
Yeah, it would be really interesting. I think, I look back at some of the Celtics finals games I was able to go to and stuff, and it's such a big loss for the fans of the teams that watch them the whole year not to get a finals game. So I think you have to get at least 1 finals game. But
when I was in Vegas, this is off topic, when I was in Vegas for the NCAA tournament, I spent the afternoon with Oscar Goodman, who is the outgoing mayor. He's a classic, old mob lawyer. Yeah. And he's been trying to get an NBA team there for years, and he was the reason they got the NBA All-Star game there. Yeah. And he is convinced that if they can get a state-of-the-art stadium with all the suites that all the NBA owner needs, that they will get an NBA team. So I'd like to see if that comes true.
I wonder, maybe that'll be the city that tries my whole theory for how a state-of-the-art NBA stadium should look.
Maybe.
I have a whole theory in this. I'm going to write about it this summer. But
maybe you should start consulting. His wife is going to become mayor there, so and almost because she believes in his vision of getting a team there, and that's one of the reasons why she wants to run for mayor.
The wise guys seem like they are leaning heavily toward a Dallas underdog play. Is that correct?
You'd think, and this is why this has been so interesting, because the initial play was on Dallas, but every wise guy I've spoken to likes Miami.
Really?
And what I think is happening, and this has been happening pretty consistently throughout the playoffs, is wise guys have been playing one side because they know in the playoffs that unlike football, where there's always a sort of a huge amount of public money, the NBA, a lot of times on a game-to-game basis, wise guy money is going to outweigh the public money. And so what happens is during the playoffs, that formula switches. And so I think recognizing that, wise guys have been playing the team that they're against early to try to drive value for the team that they're for. And so they're playing the team that they're against, and then the public is sort of probably playing that team too because they're getting indication of where of which way they want the public to go. And then what they're doing is they're buying back the day of the game. And so a lot of guys I've spoken to have been very happily watching. The price on the money line is dropping in Miami's favor, and I think the wise guys are hoping that by the time the game goes off tonight, it's at a place where they can buy some value because I think it opened at minus 200 or minus 190. It's down to about 175, 170 in some places, and I think they're hoping that it gets into the 160 range, and they might start buying it back a little bit.
Isn't Dallas a bet-on team, though?
It has been, but you know what? I think that they've adjusted. I think the bookmakers have adjusted. They went through that streak. They won 15 straight games against the spread. The last 4 games, they're 2-2. And I think that any value you had in Dallas has been adjusted a little bit. And you can see it in the point spread even. The point spread right now for game 1 is 4.5. So essentially you put these teams on a neutral court and people are saying that Miami is a half-point favorite. And I could see that. That makes sense. I mean, most guys I've spoken to, their rating has Miami sort of half a point to a point better than Dallas on a neutral court. So it seems like there isn't a lot of value in maybe 2 weeks ago if the finals were being played, it might have been Miami minus 6, and maybe you're getting an extra 1.5 of value, but I don't think you're getting that right now.
Is Joe House on the line yet?
Yes.
Hey, Joe House.
What's up, Joe House?
Hi, Chad Millman.
Dude, you were right on about Miami and the Bulls.
Yeah, you really were. You called it.
Thank you for saying so.
I was thinking of it the whole time we were watching this series, I'm thinking he was dead on. And I remember I emailed you, I'm like, the Bulls worried me in the Pacers series, and they just never put it together.
It's just one of those things. I'm not a very smart guy, but the team with the best players tends to be the team that over 7-game series, pulls through, and that was the thing that made me lean towards Miami from the get-go.
Joe House has always been a guy who bet on talent, whether it was basketball or women. That's how he played it.
Food.
All right, fellas, I have a bet to throw at both of you. I really feel like this is the best bet that you can make for the 2011 NBA Finals. Try to tell me why this will lose. Miami, who is a minus 170 pick to win the series, which I think is actually, as Chad and I just discussed, they're a little undervalued. I think they should be 2-1. LeBron is only even to win the Finals MVP. Why wouldn't you just bet LeBron to win the MVP even odds?
Well, this is the debate we have every time around the Super Bowl, too. It's like, why not bet Aaron Rodgers to win the MVP? Because you're going to get better odds on that than
but they're only slightly better with the quarterback and the Super Bowl. This is screwed up because of the Wade factor. Wade being on this team has actually dropped the LeBron odds a little lower than they should be. I think even odds is a steal.
I'm with you.
Because if they win, he's winning the MVP. Right, House?
Yes, and I think I know that Chad will smack me in the back of the head for this. I would parlay Miami and LeBron as the MVP.
Ooh.
That's how I would play it because to me they're part and parcel of the same proposition.
Right. Well, there's no way. Yeah, there's no way Miami's going to win the series. There's no way LeBron wins the MVP unless Miami wins the series. The problem is Miami could win the series, and LeBron might not win the MVP.
Yeah, Wade could win the MVP.
Nowitzki is plus 140 to win the Finals MVP. The Mavericks are plus 140 to win the series. So in that case, that's exactly the same odds. There's no reason to bet on Dirk. But LeBron, that's some pretty good odds. The other one that I thought was interesting, Dallas to win in 6 is plus 450. And if you're going to bet Dallas to win this series, I don't think they're going to win in 5. Because I just think LeBron and Wade, it's too hard to beat those guys 4 to 5 times. They're going to have, each of them will have a game where they're the best guy on the floor and whatever. And also, like, the history of a road team Game 7 of the finals is just horrible. I think the Celtics in 1969 are the only team that won a road Game 7. So if Dallas is going to win this series, it's probably going to be in 6, and that's plus 450. Isn't that a smarter bet than just betting them plus 140?
It is a nice sweet spot, man. It's a lot more money.
Yeah, you're tripling your bet, basically. Right. And they're probably not going to win in 5, and they're not going to win a Game 7, so why not do 6?
I like it.
House, you like that one?
I support that. That's exactly the way I would think about it.
You are on fire today.
How about we put what's a thou? What's the fake term for 1,000?
A dime.
We put a dime on LeBron even Finals MVP, and then another dime on the Mavs plus 450. I think that's a nice one. You basically hedge the dime with the LeBron.
What about my parlay? I want the parlay action.
I don't like that parlay because there's too much of a factor Miami could win and LeBron doesn't get it.
I know. Plus, parlays are for morons.
Chad, true or false? On Saturday, Cousin Sal and I parlayed Barcelona with the Seattle Mariners.
I think that's true.
And won. 2.5 to 1 odds.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
But you guys don't have a problem at all. If gambling were legal, you definitely would not have a problem.
We're so worried about the lockout. Now we're studying baseball pitchers intently because we need something to do during the if there's not going to be.
Listen, you got to be careful with baseball because of that money line stuff. You got to look for the right value. Otherwise, it's going to cost you a lot more money, even if you end up winning. Because if you lose, it costs you so much more money. You just got to watch your bankroll there.
We jumped on the Mariners 10 to 1 to win the AL West, and it's already down to 5 to 1. So we feel vindicated. We feel like we won the bet, even though we won't win money. It's so nice to get in and then have the bet get chopped in half.
It is good, wholesome entertainment. I'm glad you guys have that to bond over.
Thank you. Plus, now I get to watch the Mariners every night. They have just 2 to 1 game after 2 to 1 game. Joe House.
Yeah.
You have been in the LeBron camp pretty much forever. You're like the anti-Rick Bucher in this respect. Is he giving you everything you ever wanted from him?
Everything except for that offensive foul that was absolutely the right call, where he lowered his shoulder into, who was it, Deng or D. Rose at the end of Game 5.
Or Ronnie Brewer it was.
Ronnie Brewer, exactly. Yeah. I just, that was such a deflating moment. I was so ready for him to just, elevate and seize the moment and show everybody, he is who we want him to be, which is really kind of where we are right now with him. He's 8 years in. This is a team that's on his shoulders. So, everything except for that moment, I've been really, impressed. He's delivering what you want out of the best player in the game.
What about you, Chad Millman?
I think he's great. What's been great for me to see is how much more intense he's become defensively. Watching him shut down players at the end of that Bulls series, especially in that last 3 minutes of that game-clinching game, or that series-clinching game, he was sick. And it made you realize how dominant he can be physically and how he is so much stronger and so much more athletic and so much more of a problem than anybody has ever been playing on the perimeter at that size. It is a wonder to watch. That said, I would still rather watch Michael Jordan play any day of the week.
Oh, I like that. I like when you go old school with MJ.
To me, it's all about competition, and Michael Jordan was competitive to a degree that I don't think LeBron is. And I think Michael Jordan was mean about his competitiveness. And if you were a Bulls fan, it gave you chills. It gives me chills thinking about it. The idea of Jordan in a lockdown environment, there's almost no athlete I'd ever watch I'd ever want to watch more in that situation than Michael Jordan.
Well, I intentionally stayed out of the LeBron MJ thing that started last week because I just feel like LeBron hasn't won a finals game yet.
Yeah, that's not even that conversation seemed, silly to me. And I was listening to Mike and Mike when it happened, and I'm like, Scotty, what are you doing, man? That's sacrilege. Like, if I'm Michael Jordan, I'm calling Scottie Pippen up and I'm saying, give me back my rings.
I think Scotty made a bet because Scotty doesn't have a lot of money. I think he bet somebody that he could psychologically will Jordan into one last comeback. And he got like 20-1 odds on it. He's like, watch this. I'm going to say this on Mike and Mike, and Jordan's going to start. He'll be back in October.
I feel like all he had to do was make a bet that he would say that because everyone would think that's so preposterous.
How about this bet, Chad? Highest point per game average in the series. Who do you think is the best odds?
Well, the best odds, or who's it going to be?
Who do you think is the favorite for this category?
It's got to be Dirk.
It's got to be who?
Dirk.
What do you think, House?
Yeah, I agree. It's got to be Dirk.
Dirk is plus 125. LeBron is plus 220.
Yeah, see, but I just don't think LeBron is going to have that kind of series.
He hasn't had that kind of series to date, and I think that's part of why he's been brilliant to date. He's had a couple games where he's only scored around 20 points.
Well, he's at, I think, 26.5 a game in the playoffs, and Dirk's been at 28.
Yeah, but the Heat don't need LeBron to score the way the Mavericks need Dirk to score. I mean, it's like when you're betting in football and you want to bet on who's going to have the most receptions in the game. You want to take the value because you want to take the second receiver because there's going to be so much value, but you got to think about the game plan. And there's no way they're going to the second receiver in the biggest game of the year as often as they're going to go to the number one guy. Dirk is going to be getting the ball in whatever position he wants to get the ball anytime during that game. And, LeBron is going to be sharing the ball with Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh, to me, is the wild card in this whole thing. I would like to know what his MVP odds are. I would like to know what his odds are for scoring because he's been phenomenal scoring. And he's been a guy who everybody was all over as hating in the beginning of the year. And he has turned out to be exactly what they said he was going to be, which I never thought he would actually be. I didn't think he could be that big of a superstar, and he's been phenomenal.
I have your Chris Bosh MVP odds. You know what they're called? The Field.
No way.
Plus 700.
I don't like Bosh in this series.
Me neither. I think Chad went off the reservation.
I hate going against Joe House.
No. I just don't like him against the Twin Towers. I don't like him against Chandler and Haywood. It's the first legitimate center combo that Bosh is going to face, kind of since the regular season.
Yeah. Yeah, Bosh has gotten a free ride in these playoffs because.
So now I have a choice. I could back off my Bosh right now and let it be the end of it, or I could become the biggest Chris Bosh fan who ever lived.
Well, here's where you go, Chad. I'm looking at the final props. You can bet on Chris Bosh over 19 points a game for plus 110. You're getting odds in your favor on that bet if you think you can get to 19.
I am turning into the big. If there was anywhere left to bet on the internet, then I would totally be making that bet.
I will tell you that you made a really good case for why Dirk, betting on him as the top scorer in this series at plus 125. So you bet 400 win 500, something like that. He almost definitely is going to be the top scorer in this series. The only thing I could see, just because of the Dwayne Wade guard matchups with Dallas, like if Dwayne Wade isn't hurt and he just kind of snaps back into Dwayne Wade mode, he could run away with that category, right?
Who's going to guard Dwayne Wade?
Well, that's an issue. That's kind of
Stevenson.
It's the elephant in the room. Yeah, for the Mavs fans.
We're going to make a joke about this. Look up the minutes that Deshaun Stevenson had against D. Wade in the regular season matchups this year, then look at what D. Wade did against the rest of the defenders that Dallas threw at him. And your eyebrows are going to go up a little.
We just had, before you guys, we had John Hollinger on. Hollinger said the thing that he worried about with Dallas was their plus-minus in the playoffs of their starting five has been negative. And Miami's obviously is positive. And he thinks that they're going to get in trouble in the first and third quarters falling behind because of the lineup, because they're afraid to mess with the Deshaun Stevenson thing. House is now arguing that Deshaun Stevenson is the Dwayne Wade stopper. Is that what you're arguing?
I think I am.
Wow. So you like Dallas? It sounds like you're leaning toward Dallas.
Well, I'm for Dallas with all of my heart. I love the story behind them. I love what Dirk's done, but my head says Miami. And it just comes down to that completely grossly oversimplified thing that I do, which is Miami has two guys inside of 4 minutes, in the crunch time zone there, who I feel pretty good about getting baskets, and Dallas only has one of those guys, and that's it.
House, you are a perfect reflection of the betting market right now that is going on between the wise guys and the public. Because the public loves Dallas and is betting in that direction, and the wise guys, their head is telling them that Miami is the better team and that they should win this series. And if the price gets a little bit closer to what they want, they will bet that series price. But certainly everybody's heart is with Dallas. And I think when you get yourself, when you get teams in a championship situation, whether it be the Super Bowl, the World Series, whatever, people tend to bet sentimentally more than they bet rationally.
Huh. It doesn't hurt to be on the side of the wise guys.
No.
I like the sound of that.
Another bet I really like. Will Mike Bibby decompose at any point in this series? 5-1. Do you like that one?
Those don't sound like very good odds.
Should it be higher?
10-1, 12-1. Give me.
Couple more finals props for you. LeBron's total point per game is 26.5. Seems about right.
Total points per game, 26.5?
Yeah, seems about right. Dirk is at 26, but you have to bet a little more to get it back. They have a Dwayne Wade 2011 finals versus 2006 finals bet.
Ooh.
He averaged 34.6 points a game in 2006. You can bet on 2006 Dwayne Wade giving 9.5 to 2011 Dwayne Wade. I like this. It's like a Terminator bet.
I kind of like that.
I was going to say, this could be an opportunity for a teaser if we can find something else.
Yeah, teaser.
They don't. I have to say, I was a little disappointed in the caliber of. I thought there would be more bets.
More prop opportunities?
Yeah, it's in the Super Bowl. I should be able to bet on like Tyson Chandler versus Joel Anthony and things like that. If
Who
it
wins
was
the tip?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. They have a player to win the first point, score the first point bet, and they have, this is just for game one, they have first 3-point field goals, stuff like that. But just for like the props of the entire series, not as many as I wanted. But Chad, what's your recommendation as the Vegas expert? Your recommendation is just to follow the wise guys.
I think, my recommendation is if you can get good value. I mean, as of right now, let's say I'm a wise guy, and that means I am wise with my money because I practice disciplined bankroll management because I want to do this over the course of my life. I don't think I'd make a play. I think I like Miami in the series, and I don't think I'd make a play because I don't think the price is exactly where I want it to be.
Well, then why wouldn't you bet LeBron?
But if
Finals MVP for even.
Come on, let me finish my soliloquy here.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
But that said, if I had to bet anything in the series, I would bet Miami in the series minus 170. I do, however, love the LeBron MVP prop. If it's 1-1, there's no reason not to do it.
House?
Yeah, I like all of that. The one thing I wondered about, maybe you guys already covered this, Chad, does anybody have any feelings about the totals? Because I saw the 187.5 for tonight's game.
Yeah.
And I kind of loved the over.
I have not spoken to anybody about totals in this series.
I just feel like this is going to be an all offense all the time kind of series. I mean, there'll be defensive stops, and the teams are capable of defense. It'll be interesting watching Dallas' zone against the man-to-man, effort that Miami can throw at Dallas. But I just think that, like pace-wise, this is going to be a series that's up around the 200s every game. And when I saw 187.5 right now, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
But Miami has been so good defensively.
Yeah,
I
agree.
See. It's like that just seems high to me. It just seems. Good. It feels. I'm not talking about 200. Like,
yeah,
that just seems really, really high to me.
I just have kind of a theory about, my eyes kind of anticipating a certain style of play, and I think it's going to be a really efficient offensive kind of series.
Chad, can I counter your point though?
Yes, sir.
So Miami has looked fantastic defensively in the playoffs. They go against Philly in round 1. They go against Boston in round 2, who played 2 crap games in Miami, and then their point guard dislocated his elbow. Then they go against Chicago in round 3, who ran the clogged toilet offense for 5 straight games. Let's be honest. I mean, that was a pretty easy team to stop, especially with Bucher playing that badly. This is the first real offense they've faced. This Dallas offense is at a whole other level of any of it. First of all, Dirk's better than anybody they've gone against offensively in those 3 rounds. They shoot the 3 much better. They're going to move the ball better. I don't really know if Miami's defense is that good. I don't know if I'm sold on it yet.
That's a good point.
What do you think, House?
You're talking to the guy who's ready to go plus 700 on Chris Bosh to win the MVP.
You just gave a very nice explication of my position as to why I think the totals are going to be around 200. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Wow.
I also think Dallas is going to have to push the ball. I think they're going to want the pace to be a little better because LeBron's playing 44 minutes a game. Wade's banged up. Miami doesn't really have a bench. It's weird because Dallas is the older team, and you'd think they'd want to slow it down. But I kind of feel like they want to go the other way. I think they want the game in the hundreds because if it gets it in the hundreds, you add up the Miami guys. How do they get to 100? All right, LeBron scores 35, Wade scores 30, Bosh scores 20, but they still need to get the extra points to get it up there. And that would mean LeBron and Wade would have to combine for basically 60 a game to get into the hundreds realistically. That would be my game plan if I was.
The way you're talking about it, this could end up being the greatest up and down series I've ever seen.
Well, they did it against Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
The games were 121 to 112, 106 to 100, then 93-87, 112, 105, 196.
Yeah, it's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah. So part of that was because Oklahoma City's young and they wanted to run and they wanted to push the tempo a little bit. But, I just think that's what Dallas should do. We'll see if they do it. And the other part is, Barea. I wish there was a way to bet on Barea. Why can't we bet on Barea? Where's the Barea bet?
He is so much fun to watch.
I think he's going to go nuts in this series.
The prop I wish existed is how many times D-Wade gets to the free throw line compared to how many times he went in 2006. I bet it's 50 to 75 less.
Well,
it's at least 50.
Why don't we call somebody and that can be the other half of a teaser?
Oh, I love it.
Bucher and I, we talked about that a little bit. I think the officials are going to matter so much in this series. Just because of the way LeBron and Wade play. They basically, every play you're deciding whether they just got fouled or not,
Yep.
And you can either call them all or you could let them go or whatever. And I think it helps Dallas if it's a little more physical because they're shooting more jump shots anyway.
I was just talking to a guy out in Vegas, and he was saying how bookmakers hate it when the series go on forever because they make more money when the series are shorter than when they're sweeps because so many people start chasing. And so they actually make more money in a sweep. But the NBA hates having a shorter series, especially, conference finals. When's the last time we were talking about, the NBA finals basically starting in May? And so he's like, I guarantee this series is going to be a long series because the refs are going to be instructed to make sure that that there are a lot of calls and everything stays even because the conference finals were too short.
Oh.
I love that.
Conspiracy theory.
See,
I would have said the conspiracy theory because I don't think it was great for the league that this series started later than earlier. I thought that in the old days they would have rigged Game 5 of the Bulls Miami, and then Wade would have been like, "Wow, he's got 3 fouls in 4 minutes. Wow, this is weird. 3 touch fouls." But they didn't. It was the officiating I thought was pretty good in that series.
Or a magic lid came over the rim right when he shot that game-winning three-pointer.
Right. The only call they missed that was a huge call was when LeBron took 4 steps in Game 4 on that one jump shot. That basically iced the game. And I don't know why he's allowed to take 4 steps on basically every drive he does, but for some reason that's like a rule that's been in place for a while. House.
Yeah.
Miami sweep, 10-1.
I don't like it. Not enough.
I agree.
Not enough, huh?
I totally agree.
Miami in 5 is plus 300. Miami in 6 is plus 350.
Wow, it's interesting.
It's a little weird.
That's kind of where my head is, Miami in 6.
Yeah, it would seem like that's a pretty
That feels like a sweet spot number right there.
You could basically
on both
bet.
sides.
I agree. I agree exactly with what Chad just said.
Chad, would it make sense to just bet on both in 6?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I like that.
100 plus 350, 100 plus 450. So you bet 200 to win either 350 or 450. That'd be an interesting way to play it.
And you can root, and then you can root for 6 games.
Yeah.
Which the NBA is going to want it to be.
Exactly. On the very sound basis that you just laid out.
Exactly.
The other fun thing to do if you can't decide what's going to happen in this series is just to bet over every game. Because then you're just rooting for points. There's nothing more fun than rooting for points. Yeah.
You heard me say so.
Yeah.
But that is the classic public way to bet.
Yeah.
Just bet the over. Don't think about anything else. Just bet the over. And another guy I spoke to the other day said if you're betting on defense in the NBA Finals, betting on the team that is the better defensive team is in points per game allowed, it still doesn't mean it can't go over. But if you're betting on defense, the past 7 years, you're winning like 66% of the time if you're just betting on the team that has the better defense.
Chad, has there been a breakout Vegas sharp?
This playoffs?
Yeah.
Let me think for a second. A breakout Vegas. Well, no one's coming to mind.
Yeah.
So if I can't think of anybody immediately, then...
Well, you just answered the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hockey, quickly. Bruins, Canucks. Anything?
Huge, man.
Canucks are basically 2-1 favorites?
Yeah, I don't know how you don't go with the Canucks. I mean, it just, to me, I know so little about hockey, I shouldn't even be saying anything. But what I do know is, in this kind of environment, I feel like the team that is the better team usually ends up winning.
The only problem is...
It's my house theory on hockey.
Here's why I think you can make the case for the Bruins. A lot of baggage for the Canucks. It's like the pre-2004 Red Sox. If anything goes wrong, those fans are gonna be terrified.
Or it is the 2004 Red Sox and it's their time.
Could be. But, if you remember, in round 1, they almost blew the 3-0 lead, and it was a borderline country catastrophe. And it was really like it had become bigger than sports. Like, if they had lost that Game 7, I think Canada shuts down for a week.
I think you have to root for the Canucks, if only because they look like the Hartford Whalers in their uniforms.
They do have 3
They do look very whalery. All right, Chad Millman, go back to running ESPN the magazine.
All right, Bill Simmons, I'll talk to you later. See you later, House.
See you, Chad.
House.
Yeah.
Give us your grade for the playoffs thus far.
A-.
A-. Interesting.
And I guess the minus just because I'm disappointed that the Lakers went out like punks. I would have liked it a lot better if they had at least shown up for the Dallas series. Getting swept like that's a punk move. So I give the overall playoffs a little knock. The defending champions go out like punks. That's why I give it the minus. Otherwise, I've really enjoyed these playoffs. You couldn't ask for kind of a better sample of what the NBA can deliver on a regular basis. These young teams, these sort of unexpected stories, these players ascending to the top kind of out of nowhere. I really, really, really dig what we've seen so far. And I think the correct 2 teams have ended up in these finals. I mean, I had, when we started this whole thing, Miami against the Lakers.
Yeah.
And, Dallas demonstrated that they were this year, better than the Lakers. So I think we have exactly the right 2 teams in the finals. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. What's your grade, Ben?
B-.
B-.
Yeah.
Why?
I think there's been some bad luck. I think Rondo dislocating his elbow, that series should have been great. It shouldn't have ended in 5. I don't really feel like there was a memorable game in that series. Like, what game from that series are you showing on NBA TV Hardwood Classics in 10 years? Maybe Game 4, and that wasn't...
That's a very Celtics-centric kind of...
No, I'm not done yet. I just don't feel like there was a great game in that series. Bulls-Miami, I thought, was just bitterly disappointing.
It went exactly the way I expected.
It did, but I mean, it was the Bulls' offense was so painful to watch.
Right, but that's the knock. That was their it's not an Achilles heel because it was larger than that. That was the issue that they knew going in. They'd never addressed the shooting guard position. They thought that they could get all the way there. They made it to the East Coast Finals.
I'm just saying I was disappointed. And then the Oklahoma City thing, the Westbrook, Durant, like that whole thing kind of imploded, and it made me feel I didn't enjoy that series as much as I thought I was going to because I was just constantly thinking about what the hell is going on with this team. Is this permanently damaging? Do they have to trade Westbrook now? Like,
I think you're overanalyzing. That's
maybe I am.
Exactly how it was supposed to go.
I know.
And Scotty Brooks hasn't been there before. That went exactly the way it was supposed to go. The seasoned team, the team with composure and poise in the last 4 minutes of the game, won the series.
Yeah, but
they won it in a conclusive way, the way a veteran team that's played together, that's been there, that's taken their lumps, should play. And it just turned out that Kendrick Perkins wasn't enough in terms of his veteran presence and the leadership and everything. He was great in terms of all of those intangibles, I think, based on everything I've read. But he couldn't change the outcomes on the floor, and they got their ass handed to him.
I really liked
kind of dialed up.
The one thing I loved from that series from their vantage point was I thought Harden answered a lot of questions.
Great. He did a great job.
That was good. That was the best outcome for them. I think Durant now has some questions.
Oh, I don't think that.
I think there's a little bit of questions. I do.
You have to think about, you remember MJ failed 3 or 4 times before they finally broke through.
I'm fine with that. I'm just saying that I think he's going to have to kind of model his game after what Nowitzki turned into. I don't think he can just be guy who shoots from 23 feet guy.
Okay.
He's going to really have to. Here's what I want from him over the next 2 years. I really want him to develop that same foul line post game that Dirk has. That needs to be his number one task over these next 2 years because it's just too easy to stop somebody like that when they can only go straight toward the rim and that's all they got.
That should happen. That should happen just as a matter of kind of the natural order of things. He's going to put on weight. He is, learning the game. His basketball IQ already through the roof is, growing leaps and bounds because of these experiences. I think we're going to see that, and you don't even have to ask him to do it. I
hope you're right. I hope you're right. And I don't even think he needs to put on weight. I just think he needs to get.
Well, I'm not saying needs.
Because I don't feel like
he's going to.
But do you feel like I don't feel like Dirk put on weight, but I feel like he's stronger. Like he's figured out how to hold his spot. Yeah. Here's why. Going back to the conference finals, it just felt like it was 2 of the 4 teams just weren't ready.
Yeah, that's right. You're absolutely right about that.
I'm disappointed in that. I wanted
an observation.
If you're comparing it to, like, say, the 93 playoffs.
Oh, come on.
I'm just saying. Celtics that had Knicks Bulls in one conference and Sonics Suns in the other. Those were 2 awesome series. We didn't even have.
Those are for the ages.
Yeah, but this was not up there.
This is a change of the guard season, and we got the change of the guard experience. It was exactly what I anticipated, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I like seeing the up-and-comers, the whippersnappers, take their lumps, because it makes them that much better for next season.
How many Game 7s did we end up with? That's got to factor into the playoff grade.
Okay, that's reasonable.
We only had 1 Game 7, and it was a blowout.
It's a fair point. I'm willing to take another half grade off of my rating down to B+ for some of the reasons you're mentioning. I just can't get over the Lakers, the way the Lakers went out though.
I think that's another half grade. The defending champs rolled over.
They did. It was awful.
And I think Rondo's dislocated elbow is another half grade. Because that ruined the drama of that series. You knew the Celtics had no chance when that happened.
That's fair enough.
And I also think it's interesting that the best series through 3 rounds was Memphis-San Antonio.
Oh, you
in
thought
round
that
1.
was better than Memphis-Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
I mean, it certainly fits that changing of the guard.
It was just great. Those games were so entertaining.
They really
and it was
awesome.
like I kept watching them going, I think Memphis is going to win this. I think they're better. But
I loved the Memphis-Oklahoma City series also, though.
It was good. The Game 7, you got to give it penalty points, though.
Okay.
It just wasn't good enough. The triple overtime game, I think, was the highlight of the whole playoffs, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that was
That will be on Classic.
The problem, if I'm looking at an overall grade, in round 3 we did not have a game on par with even close to being on par with the triple overtime game. LeBron had a couple good moments. I mean, I guess you can maybe say Game 4 Bulls Miami was dramatic, but man.
Well, what about Game 4 with Dallas at Oklahoma City coming back from 15 points with, under 5 minutes? That was pretty good.
Actually, yeah, you're right. That was a good game.
Impressive.
That was a really good game. You're right. That was a classic game. Do you feel that the Miami Game 5 coming back from 11 down 4 minutes, is that a game they'd show in Classic?
It
was such a collapse.
I know.
Got to hand it to those dudes, though, for coming through.
They are who they, hold themselves out to be.
Yeah. You know what was the thing I didn't like about that game, and the difference between the Dallas comeback and the Miami comeback, is that the Wade 4-point play was such a pull-out-of-your-ass shot that there was no skill involved in that shot. He got hit in the elbow, he chucked it up, and it went in.
You can't say there's no skill.
I'm just saying, that's a shot that goes in 1 out of 100 times, and it went in. And when that shot went in, I was like, oh, my God, all right, well, Miami's obviously going to win this. But to be off balance, to have somebody hit you on that part of your arm and just chuck it toward the rim and it goes in, that...
I don't know. Those two guys, Wade and LeBron, they seem to have an abnormal number of those shots that have absolutely no business being anywhere near the basket.
Oh, God.
Somehow going in.
They killed the Celtics with them.
Yeah.
How many? Can you get 4 rounds out of those shots, though?
We're going to find out. I mean, it's they're either the 2 of the 5 best players in the league, and they're going to play that way all the way through 4 rounds, or not. Or there's a chink in the armor, and we'll see it, and Dallas will exploit it. And it'll be, great. It's going to be great either way.
Yeah, see, this doesn't help your playoff grade. I really think you need to reconsider. We had 1 Game 7, and it sucked. In round 1, we had 4 Game 6s, and that's it. In round 2, we had a Game 6, a Game 7, and then a sweep, and then a Game 5. And then this last round, we had 2 Game 5s.
I'm willing to take it down to B+.
Thank you.
The overall narrative of these playoffs was exactly like what I anticipated, and there was some really great moments along the way in terms of the young teams kind of finding their way, the young teams, conquering some demons.
Yeah.
But ultimately coming up against teams where, there's a whole nother level. And I just, I like that kind of thing. I'm really excited to see Chicago and Oklahoma City next season. I'm already excited for next season.
Yeah, they'll be better next year. And hopefully Chicago will find a 2-guard who can make a shot.
Yeah, and they'll get rid of Bucher, and, they'll be better.
Where are they going to kill him?
They got to do something.
There's a theory that he's much more hurt than they were letting on. I've heard rumors about this.
If that comes to light, I'll be fair about it.
Yeah, I've heard that he's got some feet issues that he's going to have surgery. Is the word? I don't know if it's true. I'm not reporting it. Just the word on the street is that he was much more hurt than they were letting on, and they didn't want Miami to know that he was hurt.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey,
I hope that's true.
I have to go, but I have a rare plug to make.
Okay, Joe House.
Can I make a plug?
Make a plug.
This Saturday, Arlington, Virginia, Tortoise and the Hare, the 4th annual Rock the Lot event. It's a benefit concert. This year they're working with the West Virginia Alumni Association, the National Capital Area chapter, and they're raising money for the American Cancer Society and a handful of local charities as well. So if you're in the D.C. area, get over there at 2 o'clock. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's supposed to be a little cooler than it's been lately, and they have some great brands lined up. Head over to Tortoise and the Hare Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock.
And you'd see a drunk Joe House.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Okay. All right, Joe House. Take care.
Thanks.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.